The morning began with a strange stillness, the kind that made even the wind hesitate. Across the broken valley, smoke drifted like tired ghosts, spreading the smell of burnt metal and crushed earth. The war between humans and the Black Maw Raiders had turned this land into a graveyard of machines and broken hopes. But in that heavy silence, one figure stood apart from everything. Commander Sci-Fi, leader of the Vetheri Legion's observation unit, watched the valley from a tall rocky ledge. Her 4 eyes blinked slowly as she studied the human camp below. She was tall, armored, and powerful, one of the most respected commanders among her people. She carried a reputation of cold logic, sharp decisions, and a heart untouched by emotions. Her mission today was simple: observe the humans, learn their tactics, and report. No interference. No alliances. No sympathy. But something in the valley below made her heartbeat quicken in a way she did not understand. Down among the humans stood Elias Ward. An ordinary soldier with a tired face and eyes that carried too many memories for someone so young. Unlike the others, he did not carry heavy weapons or advanced armor. His arms were wrapped in bandages, and the only blade he had left was chipped beyond repair. Still, he held onto it like it carried a story only he knew. Sci-Fi had observed many warriors in her lifetime, champions, leaders, fighters who could split stone with their fists. But none caught her attention like this quiet human. He moved with a strange calmness, helping the wounded, lifting broken equipment, whispering encouragement to soldiers who had lost hope. Every action he took was slow, steady, and filled with a tired but stubborn strength. She tilted her head. Why did he stand out? Why did her chest tighten every time she saw him stand alone? Her second-in-command approached, clicking his claws in a respectful greeting. "Commander Sci-Fi, your analysis?" He asked. She didn't look at him. "Humans are unpredictable," she said softly, almost to herself. "They break easily, yet they rise again. They feel deeply, yet they keep fighting. But this one is different." Her officer followed her gaze and frowned. "He appears weak, injured. Why pay attention to him?" Sci-Fi felt a small, strange spark of irritation. "He is not weak," she replied, voice firm. "He is enduring." Her officer bowed and left, but Sci-Fi continued to stare. Elias didn't notice the alien commander watching him. He was too busy trying to keep his unit together. The previous night's attack had crushed half their defenses. Many soldiers were hurt. Supplies were low. Reinforcements would not arrive until sunset. Until then, they had to survive on courage alone. Elias walked among his injured teammates, giving them water, helping them sit up, whispering, "Just hold on a little longer. I'm here. We'll make it." He didn't look like a leader. But somehow, everyone listened to him. They trusted him. They leaned on him. And Sci-Fi saw it all. She didn't understand why her chest felt warm whenever he spoke softly to someone. She didn't understand why her breath slowed when she watched him stand, alone against the fear growing in the camp. She only knew that something about him pulled her attention like gravity. The sun rose higher, and the valley lit up with a soft golden glow. It was beautiful for a moment, until the distant rumble broke the peace. The sound came from the far hills. Thunder. But not from the sky. Enemy engines. The Black Maw Raiders were coming. Human soldiers scrambled nervously. Some cursed. Some panicked. Some grabbed their weapons with shaking hands. Elias did not panic. He stood slowly, looked toward the rising dust cloud, and breathed in deeply. His jaw tightened. His fingers curled around his broken blade. Sci-Fi leaned forward. Her 4 eyes widened. Her heartbeat thumped harder, heavier. Why did he step forward instead of running? Why did he face danger unarmed and alone? Something deep inside her whispered, "This human is different. This human is dangerous in a way I cannot explain." But another feeling, one she had never felt before, rose higher than fear: curiosity, admiration, something warm, something soft. And as the enemy force drew closer, Sci-Fi realized something that unsettled her deeply. She did not want to lose sight of him. She did not want this human to fall. Not today. Ever. The first rumble of enemy engines grew louder, shaking the ground under Elias's bare feet. Dust rose from the distant hills, twisting like living snakes across the valley. He could see the shapes now: dozens of Black Maw Raiders, armored and vicious, their weapons glinting in the sunlight. They outnumbered his small human group 10-1. The odds were impossible, but Elias did not falter. He straightened his shoulders, tightened his jaw, and raised his eyes to meet the advancing swarm. His hands were empty, except for the broken blade he still held like a promise. He was unarmed in the truest sense, Yet he stood firm, unshakable. His unit looked at him with a mixture of fear and hope. "Stay behind me," he shouted, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "We fight as long as we can." Some of the soldiers hesitated. They had been trained, armed, and prepared, but nothing could prepare them for a swarm like this. Many began to retreat. Many thought survival meant running. But Elias would not allow it. Not today. He stepped forward into the open, his small figure a defiant barrier between the raiders and the wounded. His bare feet dug into the rough ground, and he breathed slowly, carefully, as if drawing strength from the earth itself. From her vantage point above, Commander Sarakai watched, unmoving at first. Her instinct screamed that no human should stand like that. No human could survive this. But something in her chest tightened as she saw him face the inevitable with no fear, no hesitation. Something alien and unfamiliar stirred in her, a mix of curiosity, admiration, and something she did not have a name for. The raiders surged forward. Their engines roared like beasts. Weapons raised, they came to crush the humans beneath them. Elias saw the first wave. He dodged, ducked, and caught a weapon dropped by a panicked soldier. He swung it clumsily but effectively, sending a raider tumbling into the dirt. He struck again and again, using every bit of strength, every ounce of skill he had learned in drills, in skirmishes, in nightmares. Each time he fell, he rose again. Each time he stumbled, he gritted his teeth and pushed forward. He was bleeding, his chest aching, his arms shaking, but he did not stop. Sarika's eyes widened. Her chest ached as she watched him. She had seen warriors who were stronger, faster, and more skilled. She had seen champions who fought with precision and cold logic. But she had never seen someone fight with this kind of pure, raw determination. Someone who stood against impossible odds, not for glory, not for victory, but for others. Elias moved like a flame in the wind, small but impossible to ignore. His hands struck raiders' weapons aside. His kick sent enemies sprawling. He grabbed debris, stones, and broken metal to defend himself and those behind him. He was unarmed, yes, but every movement carried the weight of a promise. "I will not let them fall." From above, Sarika's tail quivered slightly, a subtle sign of tension. Her claws flexed against the ledge. She had orders: observe, do not interfere. Her commanders had made it clear humans were expendable. And yet, she could not turn away. "Why do you fight like this?" she whispered to herself. "Why do you risk everything, human?" The enemy's numbers pressed harder. One raider lunged at a wounded soldier. Elias moved faster than she could have imagined, catching the raider by the shoulder and throwing him to the ground. Another struck at him from the side, and Elias rolled, narrowly avoiding a fatal blow. His movements were messy, imperfect, but effective. Every swing, every push, every fall was fueled by something stronger than technique. Heart. Sarika leaned closer to the edge of the ledge. Her 4 eyes focused entirely on him, tracking every motion, every breath. Something inside her shifted. Her chest ached with a strange warmth. She did not understand it, and yet it made her pulse quicken. The humans behind him looked at Elias with awe. Some cried, some whispered prayers, but all drew strength from his stubborn, fearless presence. He was not a hero in the stories, they had none left, but he was something greater, a human willing to give everything for others, and Sarakai realized the truth. A truth that struck her harder than any battle she had ever fought. It was not power, speed, or skill that made a warrior unforgettable. It was courage. And in that moment, Elias's courage burned brighter than anything she had ever witnessed. The first clash had begun. And in the smoke, dust, and chaos, one human fought unarmed, and an alien commander watched, captivated and strangely moved. The air smelled of smoke, blood, and sweat. The valley trembled under the pounding of raider engines and the screams of those who fought. Elias stood in the center of it all, unarmed, battered, yet unbroken. Every breath he drew felt heavy, yet every step he took carried purpose. He was small compared to the enemy, but his courage made him feel larger than any warrior Sarakai had ever seen. The raiders swarmed around him, their weapons sharp and cruel. Some laughed, thinking it would be easy to crush the last human defiance. They did not know that Elias did not fight for himself. He fought for those who could not stand. He moved, like a man with nothing left to lose, and yet everything to protect. Every swing of his arm, every grab of a fallen weapon, every push of a raider back into the dust was fueled by something invisible but unbreakable. Heart. One raider leaped at him, jagged blades raised. Elias sidestepped, grabbed a rock, and slammed it with all his strength into the raider's chest. The creature fell, wheezing, But Elias barely paused. Another came from behind. He ducked, twisted, and used the enemy's own momentum to throw him into the dust. He was messy, untrained, but relentless. From her ledge above, Commander Sarakai's 4 eyes followed every movement. Her chest tightened. Her mind raced. How could one human so fragile, so small stand against such overwhelming force? And yet, here he was, standing taller than any Vethri warrior she had ever commanded. Something strange rose within her. Mix of awe, curiosity, and an unfamiliar ache that she could not name. This was not just courage. This was sacrifice without question. Elias was not thinking of glory or victory. He was thinking only of those behind him, the injured humans who had no one else to fight for them. He fell once hard, the ground cutting his hands and knees. The raiders laughed cruelly, sensing weakness. But even as his body screamed in pain, he pushed himself upright. His breathing was ragged, his arms shook. Blood dripped from cuts across his face. And still he stood. Sarakai could not stop watching. Every instinct she had screamed to step in, to protect this human she barely understood. Her orders were clear. Do not interfere, observe only. But her body betrayed her. Her claws itched, her tail twitched, and her chest burned with something unfamiliar. She had seen bravery before, but not like this. Not a quiet, stubborn defiance that refused to yield even when death seemed certain. Elias grabbed a broken spear lying in the dirt and swung it clumsily, knocking another raider off balance. He used his bare hands to push one away, ducking the next attack, barely keeping pace with the swarm. He was exhausted, yet his eyes burned with determination. Bright as flames in the smoky morning light, he did not fight for revenge. He did not fight for pride. He fought for life, for the wounded, for his friends. And somehow that made him more dangerous than any trained soldier or weapon Sarakai had ever faced. Her chest tightened. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "Why does he risk everything? Why does he fight like this?" The humans behind him began to see what she saw. They rallied around him, drawing courage from his stubborn will. Even those who had lost hope found strength when they looked at him. Elias was more than a soldier. He had become a symbol of something larger than himself. The battle surged around him. Smoke stung his eyes. Dust choked his throat. His clothes were torn. Cuts burned on his skin. Every muscle screamed. Yet he did not waver. Every raider who approached him found a force that refused to break, even without weapons, even without armor. Sarakai's hands clenched against the ledge. Her mind screamed in contradiction. The Vethri did not feel for humans. They did not admire them. They certainly did not feel warmth toward them. And yet, she did. Every instinct she had as a commander, every lesson she had learned about observation and detachment, was failing her. The human continued to fight, falling, rising, moving with raw, unpolished strength. His courage was a firestorm, impossible to ignore, impossible to leave unchecked. And Sarakai realized, deep inside, that this was no ordinary soldier. This human had something in his blood, in his heart, in his very spirit, that defied every law of nature she had studied, the unyielding force of humanity. And in that moment, as Elias threw another raider aside with a desperate strength born of love and duty, she understood something she had never allowed herself to feel. Humans were not just fragile creatures. They were not just clever animals. They were something extraordinary. And this one human, this flame among ashes, was unlike anything she had ever witnessed. Her heart, if she could call it that, beat faster than it should. She had never seen a creature fight so hard for others without thought of survival. And she realized with a quiet, unstoppable certainty that she would remember him, not as a soldier, not as prey, but as something far more remarkable. The battle raged on. But the eyes of a Vethri commander and a human soldier locked across the smoke-filled valley, and in that silent understanding, a story had already begun. The valley trembled under the enemy's advance. Smoke and dust twisted around Elias as he fought, unarmed but unyielding, each movement fueled by desperation and courage. His muscles burned, his arms shook, and every step felt heavier than the last. The Black Maw Raiders pressed harder, their numbers overwhelming. One by one, the humans behind him fell back, some screaming, some sobbing, some frozen with fear. Elias's vision blurred with sweat and blood, but he did not falter. He rose on shaking knees, his chest heaving, his broken blade slipping from his grip. He was alone now, truly alone, between the raiders and the few remaining wounded soldiers. Every instinct screamed at him to run, to survive, but he could not. Not while others depended on him. From above, Commander Sarakai's 4 eyes narrowed. Her heart, if she could call it that, tightened painfully. She had watched countless battles, had studied countless species, but she had never seen such reckless, unwavering courage. Elias was too small, too human, too fragile, and yet he stood like a mountain in the storm. Her mind raced. Her orders were clear: observe only. Do not interfere. Humans are expendable. Every fiber of her training screamed at her to stay put, to remain detached. And yet, every instinct in her body, the one part of her she could not control, shouted the opposite. Why do you fight like this? She whispered, almost to herself, watching Elias lift a wounded comrade into a safer spot. Another raider lunged, blades raised high. Elias caught a glimpse of it too late. He tried to dodge, but the raider struck his side, sending him crashing into the dirt. Pain seared through him, sharp and blinding. He gasped, trying to pull himself up, but the world tilted. His strength was gone. His resolve wavered for the first time, and in that moment, something broke inside Sci-Fi. Her claws flexed against the stone ledge. Her tail twitched, betraying her tension. Her instincts, trained for decades to obey, to follow orders without question, were failing. She could not watch him die, not like this. Not for something as trivial as protocol. She leapt. Time slowed in her mind as she descended from the ledge. Her forearms extended, claws ready. Her powerful legs carried her over jagged rocks and smoke-filled gaps in the terrain. The wind whipped against her armor, but she barely noticed. Her focus was entirely on him, the human who had fought unarmed, fearless, and impossible. Elias barely had time to register her arrival. A massive shadow fell over him, and he instinctively rolled to the side, barely avoiding a lethal strike. When he looked up, he saw her, Sci-Fi, the legendary Vetheri commander, her forearms spread wide, her armor gleaming with a deadly blue glow, standing between him and the raiders. The raiders froze. They had seen powerful warriors before, but nothing like this. Fear ran through their ranks. They did not expect a Vetheri to intervene in a human conflict. They had assumed the humans were expendable. They had assumed victory would be easy. Stop! Sci-Fi's voice rang across the valley, deep and commanding, shaking the ground beneath them. The raiders hesitated. One reckless warrior lunged forward. Sci-Fi moved like lightning, her claws flashing. In a matter of moments, the raider was disarmed, thrown into the dirt, stunned and terrified. The rest of the raiders looked at each other, uncertainty spreading. They backed away, the momentum of their attack broken. Elias, still on his knees, stared at her. His heart pounded, his body trembling, and he could barely find words. "You helped us?" he whispered, voice hoarse. Sci-Fi lowered herself slightly, the motion almost imperceptible, but enough to seem gentle. Her 4 eyes softened, unusual for someone of her kind. "I helped you," she said. Her voice was low, firm, and yet carried a strange warmth he had never heard from a Vetheri. Elias's mind spun. He could not understand why a commander, an alien, a being feared across galaxies, would intervene for him, a human soldier, unarmed, bruised, and broken. He wanted to speak, to ask why, but no words came. Instead, he looked up at her, exhausted and amazed, his chest still heaving. Sci-Fi's gaze lingered on him. She had broken protocol. She had risked her reputation, her honor, and perhaps her life. And she did not regret it, because she had seen something in him that no rule could erase. Something stronger than fear, stronger than pain, stronger than the odds. Something uniquely human. And in that quiet, suspended moment above the smoke and chaos, the first bond formed, one that would not be broken by war, distance, or reason. Elias did not yet understand it. Sci-Fi did not yet name it. But both knew, deep inside, that this day had changed everything. The valley was silent again, save for the distant retreat of the raiders and the ragged breaths of survivors. And in that fragile calm, the story of the human and the alien commander truly began. The battlefield was quiet now. Smoke curled slowly into the pale afternoon sky. The wounded humans were gathering in small clusters, checking one another, trying to make sense of the chaos they had survived. Elias sat on a rock, his body trembling from exhaustion. Cuts ran across his arms and face, and his shirt was torn in multiple places. Every breath he drew burned his lungs. Every heartbeat screamed that he was alive, but barely. Sci-Fi approached him carefully, her massive frame looming over him. He flinched at first, not because she seemed threatening, she did, but because no human had ever come this close without purpose. She knelt down, lowering her massive body until her 4 eyes met his. "You fought." "Alone," she said softly, her voice unusually gentle. You stood unarmed. You did not run. Not once. Elias tried to speak, but his throat was dry. I had no choice, he croaked. They needed me. She tilted her head, studying him like a predator studying something rare and precious. Choice, she murmured, is not what makes you remarkable. Courage is. The strength to stand when the world tells you to fall. That is what I see in you. Elias blinked, confusion and awe mingling in his tired eyes. You think I'm strong? I do not just think it, she said, and her voice softened further. I know it. You are strong in ways no weapon could measure. She reached out, her inner palm brushing the dirt and blood from his cheek. Her touch was careful, deliberate, an alien gesture of respect, and yet something far warmer. Elias shivered, partly from exhaustion, partly from the unfamiliar feeling of being truly seen. You risked your life for others, Sarakai continued, her voice almost a whisper now. You fought when the odds were impossible. That is a rarity among your kind. But rarer still is the spirit that drives you. I have observed countless humans. Many are clever. Many are strong. Few. Very few are as true as you. Elias lowered his gaze, his fingers fidgeting with the edge of his torn sleeve. He did not know what to say. Words seemed too small, too weak for what he felt inside: fear, relief, exhaustion, and now something strange. Hope. Sarakai's four eyes softened, a signal that only a few of her kind could ever express. I claim you, she said quietly. The words were simple, but they carried a weight that filled the valley. They were not a threat. They were not a demand. They were a promise. Elias froze. Claim, he whispered, barely able to comprehend. In my culture, she said, her voice gentle but firm, to claim someone is to choose them. To protect them. To stand by them, even when all reason tells me I should not. I choose you, human. You will not face death alone again, if I can prevent it. He looked up at her, his chest tight with emotion. He had faced death countless times today, but he had never felt anything like this, being seen, recognized, chosen. His voice trembled. Why? Why me? Sarakasi's gaze did not waver. Because you are more than a soldier. Because your courage is pure. Because your heart refuses to yield when the world demands it. That is why I choose you. Tears stung the corners of his eyes. He wanted to laugh, cry, fall, and rise all at once. He had fought with nothing, survived against impossible odds, and now he was being recognized by one of the most feared beings in the galaxy. I don't know what to say, he admitted, voice cracking. You need not say anything, Sarika said, her voice softer than the wind in the valley. Your actions spoke louder than words. That is enough. She moved closer, her forehead almost touching his. It was a gesture of deep respect and connection, one reserved for those the Vetheri truly honored. Elias's heart pounded, but he did not move away. He could feel the warmth in her presence, a strange comfort in the shadow of her immense strength. I will not leave you, she whispered. I will protect you, guide you, and stand with you, even if it means defying everything I have ever known. Elias swallowed hard, understanding the magnitude of her words. This was not simply protection. This was commitment. This was connection. This was the bond that would change both their lives forever. And in the quiet valley, with the smoke rising and the sun warming their skin, Elias realized that he was no longer alone. Not really. Not ever again. Sarika's four eyes remained locked on him, soft and unwavering. I claimed you, she said again, almost tenderly. And now, I will stand with you, human, always. Elias nodded, a small, exhausted smile breaking across his face. For the first time that day, he felt peace. He had survived. He had been recognized. He had been chosen. And somehow, against all odds, he knew that nothing, not war, not pain, not the universe itself could take that away. The valley had fallen silent. Smoke curled lazily into the sky, carrying the scent of burnt earth and scorched metal. The wounded were tended to, and the few remaining human soldiers were gathering what supplies they could salvage. Elias sat on a broken rock, his body trembling from exhaustion, every breath labored and heavy. Cuts ran across his arms and chest, his shirt torn and stained with blood. He could barely move, yet his mind refused to rest. Sarika stayed close. She did not sit, did not kneel exactly, but remained near enough to watch, to protect, and to be present in a way that made Elias feel safe without needing to understand why. She cleaned a gash on his arm with precise, careful motions. Her claws moved gently, surprisingly soft for a creature capable of destroying entire squads without effort. "You should rest," she said softly. Her 4 eyes blinked slowly, taking in the smallest details, the tension in his shoulders, the pale skin under the bandages, the way his chest rose and fell unevenly. I can't," Ilias whispered. "There are still others. We can't leave anyone behind." Sarakasi's tail twitched slightly, a subtle gesture of irritation and concern. "Some cannot be saved," she said. "But you are still here. You survived. And that is enough for now." He looked up at her, his eyes heavy with fatigue and disbelief. "I was unarmed. I fought with nothing. You fought with everything that matters," she said firmly. "Your heart, your courage, your will. That is stronger than any weapon." Her words, simple yet profound, cut through the haze of pain and exhaustion. Ilias swallowed hard, unsure if he wanted to laugh or cry. He had fought and almost died today, and yet somehow, the presence of this alien commander, towering, powerful, and impossibly foreign, made him feel seen in a way no one ever had. "You claimed me," he said quietly, testing the words, letting them roll around in his mouth. "Why?" Sarakasi's 4 eyes softened, and she tilted her head slightly. "Because you are true. Because your spirit refuses to break. Because the world underestimates humans. And yet you stood, unarmed, and held everything together. That is why I chose you." Ilias lowered his gaze, feeling the weight of her words. They were not praise he had ever earned, not recognition he had expected. They were a promise, a bond he could not ignore, could not reject. "I don't understand." "Why me?" he whispered. "There were others stronger, better fighters." "You do not understand yet," she said gently. "It is not strength that matters. It is courage, loyalty, and heart. You have all 3 in abundance. That is why I stand with you. That is why I claimed you." Ilias blinked, overwhelmed. For the first time in his life, someone, not a friend, not a superior, not a comrade, looked at him and saw everything he had tried to be. And that recognition, that choice, made him feel small and immense at the same time. For hours, they stayed there in the quiet aftermath. Ilias did not sleep, but he felt the presence of someone stronger than fear and pain. Sarakai did not speak much, but she did not leave. She stayed near, patient and watchful, a silent guardian. Later, as the sun sank behind the jagged hills, Ilias finally asked, "Will they understand, my people?" "Your people?" Sarakasi's met his, steady and calm. "Some will fear. Some will question. Some will admire. But that is not important. What matters is that you are here. And I chose to stand with you. That is enough." Ilias nodded slowly, the tension in his chest easing. He realized that she was not just protecting him from raiders, from death, or from the universe. She was protecting him from being unseen, from being ordinary in a world that often overlooked courage in the small and unexpected. I don't know how to repay you," he admitted, voice quiet, almost ashamed. "You need not repay me," Saraka said, her voice softer than a human whisper. "I do not act for repayment. I act for what I choose. And I chose you, human. That is enough." As darkness fell over the valley, the first stars appeared, flickering above the smoke and ruins. Ilias leaned back against the rock, exhausted, but a strange warmth filled him. The day had been brutal, almost unbearable, but he was alive. He was recognized. He was chosen. And Sarakai remained by his side, silent but unwavering, her massive form a shadow of strength and reassurance. In the quiet night, with nothing but the sounds of distant wildlife and gentle wind, Ilias realized something profound. He was not alone. Not truly. Not ever again. And the bond between human and alien, between courage and admiration, between fire and strength, had begun in a way that would change both of their lives forever.